Got the blueprint, study my movement, more than the 2 cents. Was losing, now I'm oozing with success. Now I got the tools to beat the stress.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today we're going to be talking about Braun Strowman upsetting the Flippity Doodads once more by giving himself a little too much credit, but also the importance of not trying to impress people who don't like you anyway, which is sort of my overall goal of this. Braun Strowman went online, tweeted out his appreciation for the match he had with Omos at Crown Jewel. In doing so, he put down some of the indie wrestlers and flippity doodah guys and was deluged with hatred, disrespect, and other sorts of nonsense. So we're going to talk about that nonsense for sure. But let's get into what Braun Strowman had to say. He said, quote, "Holy hell, Giant Omos. Can you believe we got 47 stars?" And reminded the people that no one cares about these flippity floppers. Giants and monsters greater than Flippy Flopper. Bag your grocery at Kroger. Airport test, size is the prize. Swole is the goal. People immediately got angry. Let's focus on some of the wrestlers that got mad first, because I think that that's pretty funny that wrestlers would get themselves so worked up and so worked into a shoot. Now, what is he doing? He's basically saying that big guys are greater than smaller guys, and this is the kind of thing that people don't like. But let's be honest, is he lying? Now, even if you say, well, he's not part of the group that people would like, okay, he still got a monster reaction. He still gets monster reactions, and the crowd generally likes him. So what's the problem? The problem is, how dare this guy, this Braun Strowman, give himself any credit? How dare he talk down to our flippity doodah guys? How dare he? So later, once some fan said that the flip floppers can work circles around him, he says, haha, really? Because they be on the main card in Saudi, but instead they are at, and he's pointing to a sign that says shit indie. So he's doubling down on his indie workers are garbage tier stuff, which is the stuff that people hated about him before, right? This was something that people were very angry about Braun Strowman. What was it, like 2 years ago, maybe, when he was in WWE, and he was absolutely saying that indie workers need to work harder, need to do more, and need to be more like guys like him. They basically need to stand on their own 2 feet or whatever. So this was very good. He had a nice little run. Now, of course, he ended up backing down and saying that it was a joke in the end, which of course makes it less fun. But it wasn't long before so many people got upset. Will Ospreay, why are you so mad about making money? It's dead funny that you actually done such a great job, and yet you're mad at other people that do the same job as you. Relax, my guy. Just say you really enjoyed showing super heavyweight wrestling. Well, yes, that is true. He did get to show off some super heavyweight wrestling, and I liked how Will Ospreay, he didn't get too upset. Unlike Mustafa Ali, who super offended, says, "Can you teach me how to get fired?" Well, he could probably teach you how to get over, considering you could stand on stilts, juggle swords, and swallow a fireball, and people still wouldn't give a shit about you. But that's the problem being a Mustafa Ali. If he got fired, where would he go? What would he do? Which is one of the funnier things is people asking the question, well, what Braun Strowman, when 2 years ago when you got fired, you were doing wrestling in front of 42 people in CYN. It's like, yeah, true. That's very true. But he's not doing that anymore. So, it's what it is. Ricochet says, just don't ask him to stand on a scale or he'll threaten to sue you. Ha ha ha. I'm guessing, but he did stand on a scale. He did a weigh-in before this. But I'm guessing he meant something else. Maybe a little something, a little sneak dissing. Chris Jericho says, I used to bag groceries. Basically, he used to do the flippity doodah nonsense, and now he doesn't. Interestingly enough, so Jericho getting offended when he doesn't do that shit anymore, and he kind of knows that it's not really appreciated because that's why he changed his style significantly. But he used to do that stuff too. You know, Jericho understands. If you get older, things change. But Jericho used to do that. He was a thrill seeker. I know him and Lance Storm. People was posting gifs of him and Lance Storm, but come on. Keith Lee's response, however, was pretty interesting. He says, there are many... Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. He didn't say any of that. He says, there are many different flavors of ice cream. One does not rule all. Anyone with minor business sense understands this. There is obviously so much more that I could say, but honestly, this discussion is beneath me. You know, because he's so important that this discussion is beneath him. He's not going to sink to Braun Strowman's level, and as a guy who is a super heavyweight who can do flippity do that stuff, because he can do both. Interestingly enough. Okay, so Braun he upsets people who 9 times out of 10 didn't like him anyway, which I think is the overall goal of this. So many people I saw basically say he's not endearing himself to the locker room. He's not endearing himself to friends. He's not making friends. For starters, this is not the friends business. It's the wrestling business. Second thing is guaranteed. When he was a free agent, people in AEW or whatever didn't think he was good enough. They didn't want to sign him. They didn't think he was good enough. He wasn't important enough. And then their fan base, who was really the kind of the fan base that's really angry about this, they didn't want him there in the first place. So the people who already don't like you. Why should he care about that? And this goes for every endeavor that we undergo as, you know, citizens of the United States or people in the workplace or whatever. Why go out of your way to try to endear yourself to people who already don't like you? It's too much of that ass kissing in the world. There's enough of that. You know, it's just enough of that in the world. They already don't like you. No matter what you do, they don't like you. Like, you could be one of the best wrestlers in the world. If you vote the wrong way, these people don't like you. If you don't kiss up to the right people, they don't like you. Braun Strowman doesn't wrestle a style. He's not the kind of guy that they would like anyway. So why should he care what these people think? That's the thing about this that kind of blows my mind, is because everybody's trying to act like they didn't even give him any credit. You know, like there's a lot of people giving Omos a lot of credit, which Omos deserves a lot of credit. He was in the match. He worked the match too. It was a better match than it should have been. Giving Omos the credit is absolutely right. Okay, cool. We go give Omos some credit. Omos rules. You know, he looked really good in that match. But there was people who were shitting on the match before it even happened. Weeks before it happened. Oh, this is going to be one of the worst matches of all time. Oh, this is going to be awful. So then it was actually better than expected. The crowd was really into it. Braun is literally over with these crowds, like super over with these crowds. And he has everything possible to be proud of. He should be proud of the effort that they put in this match. Why shouldn't he be? But it's okay for some flippity fuckboy to be happy about his match and, you know, diss other people. Oh, that's perfectly fine. But when Braun Strowman does it, all of a sudden people should be upset. They should be offended. Stop it. It's garbage tier. You're garbage. Let's get into the peanut gallery, because a lot of people had a lot to say about Braun Strowman. Not everybody was taking this so seriously, even though I don't take it seriously at all anyway. It wasn't something that I thought really to be addressed. I just started seeing some of the responses that was like, okay, we got to talk about this. We got to. You know, we got to. Look at how many people look at how many of his own people in his own locker room are upset. Ricochet. who can't cut a promo to save his life, who's small, who disappears. Fucking Mustafa Ali has something to say. Like, are you serious? How many times they have to stop and start with Mustafa Ali? He's on his 5th attempt to get over. If in a business that's fair, he wouldn't have even asked to be fired. He would have gotten fired long ago. He would have gotten fired a long time ago. Ricochet, I probably would have cut Ricochet a long time too. Look, he's an athletic phenomenon. But you can teach people to do the moves. If they are athletic enough and creative enough, they can do the moves. You can't teach charisma. He doesn't have any. So let him go back and run the G1 or whatever the fuck he was doing before. Who cares, really? Ultimately, nobody gives a shit. But let's get into some of these responses. People do what works for them. Not everyone is born your size, so a smaller wrestler will do what gets them over. Not all Flippy wrestling is good or bad, but if it works for someone, it works. Just like how you do what works for you. How is this so hard to understand? Multiple different types of wrestling talents and styles can coexist in the same space and get over. Your match with Omos was a cool special attraction, and guess what? A card full of that, and you're no longer a special attraction. Your take on this is devoid of nuance, Mr. Braun. Well, he never said that the entire card should be like him. He never said that. He never said that at all. So, what kind of point was that to be made? There was no real point in that. All right. Here we go. Goofy, please. You would have been an assistant top flight security to Day at a strip mall if Trips didn't call you. Well, so would probably quite a few people in that locker room. What the hell would Dakota Kai doing before Triple H called her? She was on streams. She was a Twitch streamer. No different than any other person who just has a laptop or a fucking computer setup. She wasn't doing anything. She wasn't setting the world on fire. Saying that, if Triple H didn't call you, you wouldn't be a star. Like, okay, yeah. 90% of the motherfuckers you watch on TV wouldn't be stars unless somebody gave them a platform. This makes no sense. This is not a really good critique. Why is it always the people that are the worst at their jobs that are always the most vocal about how great they think they are at it? No one cares about your matches, big little bro. You're only employed currently because Vince Jr. thinks wrestlers are Pokemon and he has to collect them all. That sounds a lot like Tony Khan. That sounds a lot like Tony Khan. That doesn't sound like Triple H or certainly Vince McMahon. Again, Vince is the one who kind of paraded the concept of having something for everything, something for everybody, even though that was kind of a credo of wrestling. Already is how you ended up getting midgets and how you ended up getting tag teams and how you ended up getting some of the gimmick matches. Gotta live by that credo. There has to be a little something for everybody. And so, I wouldn't go with the whole, somebody has to collect all of the wrestlers. That doesn't make sense, brother. Sorry. I don't know who that wrestler is that they post. Brother, you just got signed back a couple of weeks ago. What's your problem? The fact that he was unemployed for like a year and now he's back and he's, doing as well as ever. In some ways has improved because the presentation has improved a bit. So that's great. Somebody posted a picture of Vader saying he did moonsaults. You can't. How do you know he can't do a moonsault? Just because he didn't do one, he can't do one? Plus, I think that if Vader was still alive, Vader would be on Braun Strowman's side. Because we already know he would be. Because he was. Vader also dissed the flippity doodah wrestlers like, what was that chump? Was it Will Ospreay? Hopefully. It was Will Ospreay, wasn't it? Vader shit on Will Ospreay. Like, this is no different than what Vader did. Big dude is like, look, this is what works in this business. This is what the business is. Ain't nothing wrong with that. So, this is great. I got no problem with it. So, let's see. Pure definition of not humbling yourself. You flopped as a champion, got released, worked for a laughable promotion, and miraculously got hired back. Humble yourself. Well, I think the attempt to humble him is actually what makes him more motivated right now. Some people, they do. I think Braun Strowman kind of went through a difficult time there. He was still on the roster, if I remember correctly, when he went through his difficult time. But he tried to make it work, doing his own thing on the outside. But it says a lot that it's only certain people that the wrestling audience want humbled. You know, you have to be humble. If, you know, the Young Bucks could come out and talk about how great they are, nobody talks about how they should be humble. Nobody needs to talk about how, you know, Kenny Omega needs to be humble. Why is it all of a sudden Braun Strowman has to be humble? You know, explain that to me. Why should he have to be humble and Chris Jericho doesn't have to be humble? Why does he have to be humble and CM Punk doesn't have to be humble? Why should he have to be humble and Roman Reigns doesn't have to be humble? That doesn't make sense. You know? Jade Cargill doesn't have to be humble. She has less experience than Braun Strowman. She talks more shit than Braun Strowman. Nobody talks about her humility level. It's again, goes back to people just don't like you. Let's see. You were controlling your narrative 2 months ago. Half your coworkers are checks notes flippy floppers. You can make a point without disrespecting them. Fuck them. Okay, if they were over and on television, that would be different. Rey Mysterio can say something about Braun Strowman. He can tug Braun Strowman's leg and say, "Hey, mi amigo, I'm a flippy flopper, man. You should watch your mouth." If it was Rey Mysterio, perfectly fine. You're Ricochet, shut the fuck up and worry about getting over first. Okay? And it's clear the difference. Rey Mysterio is a star. He can main event shows. People don't tune out when Rey Mysterio is there. He can get sponsorships. Rey can do whatever the fuck he wants. He's the smallest man on the roster. He can do whatever he wants. Ricochet, small guy on the roster, disappears in the crowd. Sorry. If you're not over, you're not a star, you shouldn't be criticizing Braun Strowman at all, period. Now, for the rest of the flippity-doo-dah guys on the roster, they need to get over. All the Nathan Frasers and all those fucking guys, try getting over before you have feelings about what Braun Strowman has to say. Prove him wrong. Prove him. That's the best way to handle this situation. You don't like what Braun Strowman said? Prove him wrong. Go out there, outperform him, get over, get higher than him on the card, make him look up at the lights for you. That's how you prove him wrong. Unless you do that, with all your tweeting, they ain't gonna make it no better. Who cares what you have to tweet? I don't care about your tweets. It says, yes, this is the same guy who couldn't hack it in the indies when his precious WWE fired him. Well, I think couldn't hack it on the indies versus try to create his own organization is a little bit different. I wouldn't actually be, and I always thought it was a very weird thing that people talk a lot about hacking it on the indies when half the fucking indie wrestlers are broke. And, you know, like the last time Braun Strowman went through this, right? There are so many indie wrestlers coming out talking about how they couldn't, you know, they wrestle on the weekends because they have to have a separate job because they don't make enough money. And it's like, okay, but Braun Strowman was one of those people who was kind of like, he knew his worth, I guess you could say, put it in those terms. And he knew that most of these independents couldn't afford him. So he started to start his own thing, which I think is pretty smart. It didn't work, which, you know, that happens. Not everybody's going to have a Tony Khan secret investor who's going to give you, you know, what was it? What did he give them? $100 million, you know, to help invest in AEW? I mean, fuck. Look at, you know, Ring of Honor wasn't setting the world on fire when the Young Bucks were there and Kenny Omega and all those guys were wrestling on the card. They didn't set the world on fire. It took for somebody to show up with $100 million to get them on the map. You know, so I think it's more the marketing and the money, more so than talent sometimes. But that's a debate we can have some other time. So it says, imagine praising yourself for being in the worst match of the night on a Saudi house show. Who says that it was a house show? It was on pay-per-view. But looking at bio, first thing you see, you clearly know what it is. Pronouns. Holy hell, aren't you the same guy who could not draw in the indies? Your company had to refund people's money. If you weren't wrestling for WWE, you would never get over. Maybe. But he does wrestle for WWE. And I think that trying to define people by their failures is like, well, there's a reason why he's a success. You know? That CYN didn't have the best reputation or the best talent. Like, the mouthpiece for the company was EC3. He was going out there saying weird stuff, doing weird stuff. It didn't really help the company in the long term. But they barely even got started. I think CYN was around for less than a year, before Cross and Strowman got called back to WWE, and EC3 was just kind of left there by himself. But they didn't really have, again, they didn't have the money that AEW has. They don't even have the money that Impact has. You're talking about, and this is very strange that people who all talk about workers and how, workers need to own their own labor and all this kind of shit, and everybody's taking advantage of the independent contractors and all that shit. A guy tries to start his own company. Him and two or three other wrestlers. No multi-billionaire backers. And it flopped because they don't have the money and the resources that the millionaires and the billionaires and the corporate sponsors and all of them have. Yes, it flopped. But guess what? He didn't have a Vince McMahon or a Tony Khan or a Panda Energy or an Anthem Enterprises or whatever funding the fucking company. It was three former fucking wrestlers who tried with their own money and maybe a little bit of a private investor, small-time private investor, tried to run their own company and it didn't work. So he tried to run his own company and it didn't work. Other people have also tried to run their own companies and it didn't work. Or if it does work, it's working on a very, very small scale. And he got a big money deal to come back. I think he's just upsetting people that he's more valuable than they are. Somebody says, you work on the same roster as Ricochet, Ali, and not to mention Rey Mysterio, tweeting like this. True. But only one of those three people are actually over. Only one of those three people are actually considered somewhat of a legend. Ricochet, I guess if you look around the overall picture of pro wrestling, he can be considered somewhat of a star. He's a star on the independents. But being a star on the independents, I don't know, man. Does it mean more to be a star on the independents or to be like a blue chip NCAA prospect? Because ultimately you're still not in the league. You won the Heisman Trophy. You're like Maurice Claret. You won the Heisman Trophy or something like that. At least I think he did. But what was his effect on the NFL? Zilch. None. Like no effect at all on the NFL. So what are people going to remember? Well, he was a blue chip prospect who washed out of the NFL. That explains so many guys that came from like the indies, Low Key, Austin Aries. There's so many of those kinds of guys who get the big money deal, they get the opportunity, and they washed out. It happens. But Braun Strowman didn't wash out. He was there longer than Low Key was. I think you can combine Low Key and Austin Aries and Samoa Joe all of their time in WWE, and I still think Braun Strowman was there longer than all three of them combined. And then got a second chance. And I love Samoa Joe. So I don't think, and plus I don't think he fits this conversation. It says, weren't you in front of crowds of like 10 2 months ago? It's like, yeah, he was. But now he's not. So get your glow up together. Says, Braun got WWE and AEW fans to agree on something, and that is Braun is a moron. I don't think so, because I think a lot of people in WWE actually support Braun Strowman and are okay with it. The AEW fan base, though, considering their company is like 90% work rate flippity dudes, yeah, they're pretty upset. But they'll get over it, and if they don't, well, fuck them and feed them fish heads. They'll be okay. All right. Dude, you can state your opinion without putting other wrestlers, especially the experienced and indie ones, down. Then you had to drag Omos into this. What a horrible take from you. But I'm not surprised considering the fact that you were with a shitty company before coming back to WWE. He was with a shitty company that he helped to put together, by the way. On his own. Trying to book talent and do all kinds of stuff. It didn't quite work out. Omos, got to give Omos some credit. He did a really good job. All right. Remember when he went full Fight Club and declared no corporation will ever own him, and as soon as Hunter asked him, he dropped the company he was trying to build and effectively killed it. I remember. Yes, I remember that too. The whole controlling your narrative thing, I liked it. I liked the concept behind it. You know, it was going to be the boys owning their own stuff and doing their own thing. But you had to understand that without the money, it wasn't going to work. All right. But it was mostly, if you actually watch the Control Your Narrative shows, well, not the shows, because I never seen any of those, but the actual show, the movie that they did or whatever the fuck they calling it. Was it a movie that they called it? With that featured Braun Strowman becoming the Titan. I did a review of it on this channel. It was all about him, you know, deciding to do things his own way, you know, and not the way that Vince wanted him to do things, which was the choo-choo trains and all that kind of shit. That was the stuff that was killing him, but they got away from that. So everything's great. Somebody says, I don't think blatantly burying 90% of your coworkers is the best way to go, especially considering the fact that you just returned. Most of those talent you've worked with are those flippity floppers. Not the top guys. You know, maybe Seth Rollins is he was one. I think he considerably slowed down with that. But Roman isn't. I'm pretty sure Roman ain't offended. And that's the only one I would really care about, because that's who Braun will be working with if he gets, you know, pushed in the right direction. He's going to be working with guys like Bray. He's going to be working with guys like Roman. He's not going to be... What would be the purpose of him having a match with like Mustafa Ali or Ricochet or anything like that? It really wouldn't do him any good. And he would just crush them if he had to. So he's great at making friends in the workplace. You got to be kidding me. You were only brought back because the boss's father-in-law has hard-ons for people that are 7 foot tall. If that wasn't the case, you'd be a part of a traveling circus putting together rides that came in a suitcase. Wow, that wasn't too bad. That wasn't too bad. I don't understand why that would be. It's like, hey, you don't work in WWE, so you won't be making any money. It's like, yeah, probably. You know, that's just like 90% of the wrestlers right there anyway. Either you work in Japan or you work in AEW. That's kind of the list. Work in Japan, work in AEW. That's the only way for you to make any money. He wasn't going to Japan, at least I don't think so. And AEW had pretty much let it know that they didn't want him because there was a ton of negative fan reaction around him anyway. So they wasn't going to touch him. So this kind of just created this situation where he's kind of like, well, got to do my own thing. Right? Let's see. I'm taking Lucha Libre over whatever y'all did every day. I like Lucha Libre too. Mexicans love Lucha Libre. But Mexico is also a third world country. So it is what it is. Adam Scherr openly talking down to the wrestling style of 90% of his co-workers is insane. Ricochet Ali already tweeted about it and made fun of him. That is 100% how you get popular backstage. What a stupid guy. Well, here's the thing. Being popular backstage versus being popular on TV, two different things. Being popular on TV actually gets you paid more money. It also gets you more TV time. It also means people get to buy your merchandise. But I guess if you want to be popular behind the scenes, which is like, you know, political bullshit, I guess if that's what you want, you can have it. But if you were to ask me, I would care more about what the audience thinks. And I'm talking about the legitimate audience, not these dweebs online who their favorite wrestlers, these are some girl from Stardom like this guy or somebody else, you know. If you got like a Stardom wrestler in your profile picture, or you got pronouns or Ukrainian flags or some shit like that, you don't exist in reality. You know, you're just basically whatever this is your personality. You know, being a wrestling fan is basically your entire personality. If you're like a guy who doesn't, I'm not just saying you watch Stardom. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like you got Miyu Awatani or whatever as your goddamn profile picture. You've gone overboard. You know, like the people with the anime avatars. It's like you've gone overboard. Somebody says, I like you. You've had a good return. Kids all around the world look up to you. Not too long ago, you were unemployed. You needed this more than WWE did. You could try being a little bit more humble. Also, accept the fact that not everyone finds success the same way. And I agree with that last line. But again, this whole he needs to be humble. I really wish people would have that attitude when somebody like the Young Bucks come out of their face and talk about what they are. Like when CM Punk was calling himself the best in the world, he could barely execute a leapfrog. People didn't say he needs to be humble. Nobody. CM Punk been botching a flying elbow for 10 years. He been fucking that up for a long time. How many people made excuses every time CM Punk had a botch in his most recent run? He was botching, falling all over the place, fell down, broke his leg, or whatever the fuck. They just kept making excuses. He's a really good worker, though. It's like, huh? If Braun Strowman fuck up one move, he's the worst in the world. CM Punk can botch half a fucking match, and people will be like, but he's one of the best, though. It's like, yeah, you're phony. You're weak. You're garbage. Nobody believes you. Somebody says, I'd rather watch paint dry, cut my grass with scissors, and scrub the floor with a toothbrush before I ever watch to control your narrative, reject. You're a disgrace to big guy wrestlers. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Some guy says, Omos carried you, just like everyone else has. He got carried by Omos. Who everyone hates, by the way. Not everybody's a fake Omos fan. You know. Omos is so good. He was so good, really. No one too long ago you were saying Omos was one of the worst wrestlers in the world too. And hell, I wasn't even on that train. And he really was pretty good, on that show. I liked it, so it was nice. Here's see. Adam Scherr is who we thought he is. Okay. I don't understand what that's supposed to mean. I'm confused, Adam Scherr. Did Kroger bet you a lifetime supply of frozen tater tots to post the dumbest and most tone-deaf take on your crown jewel match? Well, he probably wouldn't eat the tater tots anyway. He probably kind of avoids carbs. I think for most of the time, he probably avoids carbs. Why does this guy continuously go out of his way to prove that he's an arrogant dickhead? A guy with Kenny Omega in his profile. Oh, boy. Talk about arrogant dickheads. The wrestling artist, the wrestling artiste. And somebody else is an arrogant dickhead. Shut up, bum. You were literally on the independent scene and couldn't sell out a venue to save your ass. You wouldn't say this to anyone like Rey Mysterio. Remember that no matter what you do, you'll never be as great as Rey Mysterio or Eddie Guerrero. Well, 99% of all wrestlers will never be as great as Rey Mysterio or Eddie Guerrero. So that would put him in the Braun Strowman in the same category as Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada, Katsuyori Shibata, and everybody else that you love. None of them are as good as Rey and Eddie either. Okay, so please come better than this. Yeah, I can't believe people are kind of pissed off about this. This is hilarious. Imagine being this stupid. Braun, Adam, dumbass, piece of shit, whatever you be called. Those indie guards are far better than you. People like Ricochet and Kenny Omega and Mustafa Ali and Kid Bandit and more have more talent in their pinky than you do in your entire body. Try to sneak Kid Bandit in there like come on. What a joke. Kid Bandit is one of those mean wrestlers. Like, everybody likes Kid Bandit because they like Kid Bandit as a person. I've never seen anybody pay any fucking money to see Kid Bandit wrestle. You know, it's the kind of name that only comes up when you're really, 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 really deep into the wrestling bubble. Because there's going to be some people who are going to say, who the fuck is Kid Bandit? I'm not going to tell you. Google it. The last time you talked all that crap about wrestlers, those kind of wrestlers, you found yourself unemployed and sad. Be humble, big fella, before you go looking for another narrative again. Okay. Somebody posted Phoenix versus El Hijo del Vikingo. Professional athleticism from two highly talented individuals. A very fluid match that didn't contain any filler. Okay. I love this match. I thought this match was tremendous. I like Lucha Libre. I really do. I don't see how this disproves his point, though. You know, I don't see how this disproves his point. You know, it's definitely a different flavor of ice cream from what Omos and Braun Strowman was doing, for sure. But I like that match. I liked it more than I liked Braun Strowman and Omos, that's for sure. But I mean, there's a reason AAA hasn't got any traction in the United States. It got like almost zero traction in the United States. Here's one that's not too bad. Friendly reminder that this guy had to create a company because no one wanted to book him after he was fired, from which they banned the Flippy floppers, and thanks to that, they couldn't even fill a garage for their shows because it seems that his, quote, star power was not enough. This person has Riho in their profile. Again, I mean, I'm not saying that none of this is true, only that how much of that is actually marketing. Like people know who these guys are, but they're wrestling in National Guard armories and basically in the middle of nowhere in buildings that only hold like 42 people, high school gyms and shit. Yeah, it's not really going to work out too well if that's going to be what you do. Somebody says, so glad he said this because I'm hoping it will remind people what a fucking arsehole this guy is. Still don't see why he was brought back. Because he is over with the audience. He's got over with that audience. They like him. So he was brought back. It's not like you need to know the goddamn Infinity Serum or something like that to figure out how it works. People like him because, he's big, he's somewhat charismatic, he can move when he wants to, and he can have decent matches. If you're not looking for everybody to do 100 flips and to run around in circles, for 45 minutes. His matches aren't going to be that long. They're going to be shorter, harder hitting, bigger impact matches. And he should get a lot of credit for his amount of selling he did in that match too, by the way. Okay, here's one. Hobbs is a better wrestler than you. Archer is a better wrestler than you. Cage is a better wrestler than you. Breaker is a better wrestler than you. Big E is a better wrestler than you. From WWE, AEW, New Japan, etc. Everybody is better than you. Tall or not, built or not. Well, let's not be hasty. Braun Breaker, okay. Hobbs, he's definitely better. Braun Strowman, I would definitely rather have him than Lance Archer. I would most definitely like to have Braun Strowman over Brian Cage. Lance Archer and Brian Cage both suck. They suck donkey dicks. They suck ass. Lance Archer, the guy who fell on his head trying to do a moonsault. I mean, come on. The guy can't get over. If he stepped over a broom, he wouldn't get over. Nobody, it didn't matter what the fuck he did, he couldn't get over. He was only over in Japan because for some reason being a big white guy is what gets you over in Japan. That you could be the most boring, non-charisma, no personality having asshole in the entire business. If you're big and white, they will like you in Japan for some reason because that's what they like. They like big white dudes over in the East. They do. Not all the big white dudes are going to be Stan Hansen or Bruiser Brody, big dudes with some big tough guys with some charisma and some personality. Most of the time they're going to be Scott Norton or fucking Lance Archer, some guy who probably wouldn't be that considered that big in the United States because there will be guys who will be bigger than him on the roster. And, or there will be guys who he would exist as a big plain guy to put other people over. But that would be about it. Okay, let's see what we got here. Braun fears grocery bags. All right, here's one. You mean the Flippy wrestling that outlasted CYN. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a sellout standing on his soapbox. Well, guess what? There have been Lucha Libre organizations that have flopped too. There have been plenty of Mexican wrestling promotions that have tried to come into the United States and have flopped and didn't work out. And they were less notable than CYN. There have been smaller wrestlers that have flamed out all over the place. Somebody says, Braun is right, actually. Why waste your time watching a flippy loser shit like WWE when you can watch a big kaiju, the most feared monster of all, and it's some stardom shit. It's a stardom match. These people, man. These people. All the marks are getting upset posting dance routines to prove flippy floppy wrestling is better. Ain't that about a bitch? Ain't that about a bitch? Okay. Ospreay versus Walter, which I watched yesterday, was a lot better than your garbage match, which was not even a 3-star match. How many people actually give a fuck about Ospreay versus Walter? How many people actually care about that match? If I looked up this match, would the views on this match be greater than the views of Braun Strowman's return or whatever the fuck? Probably not, right? And this match probably been out for like 10 years because Walter has been in WWE for like 3 or 4 years. So this match is going to be at least 5 years old. I think, again, people are in so deep that your subjective opinion does not disprove what he's saying. You could literally say 2 midgets wrestling is better than Braun Strowman versus Omos. And I may even agree with you depending on the midgets. But overall, Omos versus Braun Strowman is going to be more memorable in the grand scheme. People remember Undertaker versus the Giant Gonzalez. That match sucked, you know. But they remembered it because it was 2 big guys having a big guy match. So, it was what it was. Let's see, how much longer can we do this? WWE wrestlers regularly pop off like this at each other, but the fans don't demand they all get suspended or fired. Why would they demand they get suspended or fired? For what? He didn't even target any individual wrestler. He just said that this stuff is better than the stuff that they do. You know, if they're upset about it, then I guess they're upset about it. I don't know. It's appropriate that the word disco is below this because Braun and Disco love to try and tear down wrestlers who are legit drawers and far better than one-dimensional nonsense in the ring. Well, look, lady, wrestling is pretty one-dimensional. Your idea is to get into the ring and try to defeat your opponent. You know, you can add drama and Shakespeare and all that kind of stuff to it, and that makes it kind of nice. But ultimately, the point of a wrestling match is to make it like a legitimate fight where one guy is trying to beat the other via pinfall or submission or some other variety. That's what pro wrestling is. I'm sorry that if you got the wrong idea and think wrestling is something else. I don't know. But it should be pretty simple to most of us who are wrestling fans that being able to do complex zibbity-doo-dah moves that you can only do when somebody helping you doesn't really help matters. And I know that Omos helped him with that power slam too. I'm not stupid. Adam Scher, you do realize that for last year and a half, before Triple H was in charge, that you were on those shit indies too, right? Yeah, he was. And he tried to create his own little shit indie. And the shit indie one has got people very upset. Hey, man, that ever happened to that indie you were a part of with KKK carrying Iron Cross and the You See This sign guy that got canned after, like, you couldn't sell out 20-date tour? Why? Like, you trying to tell me Karrion Kross is a Klansman? Like, this is like, that's the kind of shit that I'm talking about. People just make up shit about you, and you're supposed to kiss these people's asses and treat them like they're special. Fuck these people. Fuck these guys. If you're Braun Strowman, fuck these people. They don't like you anyway. They think your friends are Klansmen and shit. They think his girlfriend is a fucking racist or something like that. She's fucking Mexican. Like, these people are so weird and fucked up. Oh, God. You were literally wrestling on the Indies 3 months ago. It's like a lot of the same shit over and over and over again. Somebody says, that's good stuff, man. It's almost as funny as when CYN wasn't selling tickets during Mania weekend in Dallas. So y'all were giving them away, and we all considered going as a joke, but didn't want the secondhand embarrassment associated with your promotion. Oh, wow. That's crazy. Well, how many other people were running WrestleMania in Dallas? Because there are probably quite a few. There's probably quite a few people trying to freeload off of WrestleMania. Remember that when Braun Strowman got fired and had to work the indie scene that he's hated on publicly for years? Brain Strowman, he certainly is not. He's certainly not Brain Strowman. Oh, shit. Imagine bragging about supporting a regime like Saudi Arabia and thinking it was a sick burn. Thanks for showing the world that Shane was shooting when he called you a dumb fuck. So many people have said that too, which is pretty funny. Somebody even posted the Shane McMahon report card thing, which I hated that feud. It was such a stupid feud. It was a stupid feud. It was stupid as fuck. It made me very angry. And that's really kind of what I wanted Vince to go bye-bye. When they did that and he was just, you're a dummy, Braun. You're dumb. You're a big dummy. I'm like, what the fuck? Come on. Here's one. This is from Joey Janela. Guy worked in indie that drew less than some indies I know. His rep in Orlando is hilarious. Known as one of the biggest tool bag clowns around the downtown bar scene. I shouldn't be commenting because the guys that work with him that actually can work will take care of it. What the fuck? Joey Janela, nobody cares. Didn't you run from a fight with Enzo? You ran from a fight with Enzo. The guy's like 5'4". He could have shoved him in a locker and you ran from him. Shut up. What is up with these people, man? They remember all of your dirt and they don't remember none of their own. Oh, I know people who will take care of this. I bet you do. But you won't take care of it, you asshole. It's always this energy when they're putting on bangers while you're not doing anything notable since Reigns made you irrelevant like 5 years ago. Is it jealousy? I don't know. Is it jealousy? I don't think it would. Why would he be jealous of people who make less money than he does? I don't understand that. My dude, you worked for CYN. I think he was a co-owner. I think he was I'm pretty sure he was a co-owner with EC3 and probably some other guy. So there's a lot of this stuff. Yikes. Imagine trashing other people's works, which means doing so trashing your friends while working the indies too. With this kind of attitude, I'll give it a year before you get released and go back to your CYN basement shows that barely drew any dimes. Wow. These people are very, very, very angry. They're very angry. All right. Let's call it a day. Hope you guys have fun. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.